Welcome back, everybody, to the PPC. We are over in Brazil now for a matchup between InControl Nation and Carnage Gaming. My name is Dolson. Kresnik is here with me to talk about set number 2 of this fine Thursday of Paladins. And Kres, between these two teams, InControl, Carnage, teams that have had some momentum, and some is maybe the right word for it. But this should be a close matchup, and I think might shift up some of the dynamic here in Brazil.
Yeah, InControl, a team that has been playing, I think, very strongly since the season started in general. Good play against Parallax in the past, but them going directly up against Carnage, a team that literally left last week with just Carnage behind them with one of the faster 3-0s we've seen in the Brazilian region. Going to be an interesting matchup between them. One of the closest ones I think we've seen, at least in terms of standings in Brazil so far. Only one map between the two of them. I gotta say, it's so hard for me to favor one of these two teams going into it because I feel like they've had such different levels of play against everybody.
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. And I love this. I mean, you look at Europe and D69 kind of far and away above everyone else. This is literally as close as you can get, minus that one map plus minus. So just as a reminder, InControl Nation, kind of that old 5-stack squad: IceMonkey, Tóuga, Souza, LZerO, Amadeus, and then Carnage, Scooter, Ares, Crimson, Aspexy, and GuhRVN. Serpent Beach for map number 1. Has there been a maybe distinct meta that kind of stands out to you, Kresnik, between Brazil and maybe some of the other regions? Or are we finally starting to see, maybe picks and bans wise, sort of a universal meta kind of across Paladins?
Brazil is still definitely a standout. I think people watching the Brazilian region are realizing that 2 tanks are still viable in some situations, but teams are still... In Brazil, they're doing the 2 tanks almost all the time. In other regions, they're kind of falling away from having an off tank in general. But I expect to see, I think, as the weeks go on, a little bit more of the newer meta that we've been seeing a lot of coming from Brazil. And they kind of go away maybe from these 2 tank compositions. But there's a lot of these players, some I haven't really seen play off of these tanks. So it's going to be interesting to see how flexible they really are when it comes down to it. And the bans are looking almost similar to what we've been expecting, I would say, from some of the other regions, with flanks gone, healer gone. But Raum, I would say, a big surprise coming out of Carnage. We haven't even seen Raum really get picked outside of some sets in NA, and we haven't seen him at all in EU in a while. That's
true. Raum has been kind of that. He's obviously strong, but once teams start to kind of pick up how to play around him, play into him, play against him, it's kind of been mitigated a little bit. Ash, though, first selection overall here for InControl Nation. I wasn't surprised. Just kind of quick thoughts on the bans Maeve and Andro taken away. Not surprising, I think, in general, but obviously also here on Serpent Beach when you talk about mobility and verticality being so important. Hence maybe a buck pick here for Carnage. But what do you make of that Ash first selection overall?
I don't know about how much I feel about it with how aggressive you could go with a Raum, with a Ruckus, with just Raum being banned and Ruckus still being up. I'm not sure if the Ashe needed to go that early. I would say with the double vertical flankers banned, maybe Evie was something I was thinking could be a higher priority just to have that much stronger control over the high ground. But 2 tanks locked in by InControl. They wanted the Ashe to have the very, very far moving, quick cross the map kind of aggression while the Inara can stay still. It might struggle with the Buck, though. The Buck can kind of hold her in place. Once she dives in, maybe she tries to go for the Buck, but she's never going to be able to confirm a kill on him if she's moving alone, and Buck would have been one of the better people to go with her.
And Viktor as well for Carnage. I mean, talk about an onslaught of damage that Carnage will have here. I mean, obviously we haven't seen what InControl are moving for their damage picks here just yet, but they have double tank, they have a healer, they're going to lock in a Cassie as well. Plenty of burst potential there. If you're running that big game Cassie, we have seen kind of a flexibility between big game and Impulse a little bit, but Cassie Strix to round out. What do you make of that damage combination?
Double backline, and this is a meta that I think flankers have been kind of very, very strong. You want that mobility, you want to be able to surround someone and get away from fights you don't want to take. But InControl's not really going to have that choice. Carnage has all the choices in the world with this Buck, Evie, Viktor. That is a very strong composition, I think, especially on Serpent Beach where verticality is king.
If Buck can get into the backline, InControl might have a tough time staying alive, but this is a matchup between 2, 3, and 1 teams tied up for that first overall spot here, looking to buy themselves a little bit of space. Serpent Beach will be our first battleground here between InControl Nation in Carnage Gaming. I think we have high expectations really for this Buck. Maybe if you look at the Carnage Gaming roster, I think a lot of what they're looking to do is based on Buck and maybe Evie as well being able to get into that backline.
I agree, and I think it's also on Scooter to slow down the aggression coming out potentially from the rest of InControl. It's definitely a little bit of a concern of how much they can follow up on ZerO, though, with Strix and Cassie, two characters that aren't really, you don't think of them as this hyper-aggressive push, maybe with a very specific build like Tactical Retreat on Amadeus and utilizing the stealth purely for mobility. It could make something out of it, but it seems almost disjointed, I would say, what InControl have drafted here. Still, though, they have two strong tanks, they have two strong DPSs and a strong healer. They just have to find their own way to make that synergy work.
No, I agree. And you purely look at the characters they have selected. I like their chances here, but looking over at Carnage, I think Ares as well has we've obviously kind of talked down that roster between, you know, GuhRVN, Aspexy, Scooter, what we want to see out of them. I think Ares, not only in this game, but really needs to be at the forefront of this Carnage Gaming roster. And Viktor, even last year in the PPL, you know, Tyra, Viktor, Vivian, that was kind of his wheelhouse. So I expect big things from him, not only in this game, not only in the set, not only in the split, but specifically here on this map. Carnage Gaming, though, they're going to stack kind of 3-4 members off to the side. GuhRVN will leap to the skies. Amadeus will immediately shut him right back down. So an early loss there for Carnage Gaming is going to put them on the back foot almost immediately.
That was a play that looked like they saw the draft from other teams and didn't see how they played it. You're not supposed to be stacking up with triple DPS with that kind of play. You got to stay around, surround them, collapse on the back line, but they all just stood in a conga line and waited for InControl to walk over and take that high ground from them. And now the fight's going so long, Aspexy's getting brawled out on the left side.
And InControl have to feel comfortable here. 84% already on the points. So even if you lose a member or two, if you can disengage, you're going to be able to get right back in. Tóuga does end up falling, so InControl at a 4 versus 5. Overtime is on, but Carnage Gaming have themselves onto the point. So a fight back in from the red side. Put them right back on the high ground. ZerO finds a shot onto GuhRVN. The Buck has had a bit of a tough time finding an opening here early in this game, but Aspexy, Ares combining for a couple of kills here, and Ares is able to get out alive. Suddenly it's Carnage Gaming who's right back in control.
And Ares took some great positioning in the high ground to surround them, and that like teams with two tanks have to keep coverage of the flank and main. That's the whole point of it. You can keep things locked down, but they're giving it up. Still ZerO struggling to climb, and with Inara fighting on the side, she's going to be on a desperate sprint to touch the objective.
Looks like an unlosable mid-fight maybe for InControl, but Carnage have carved their way right back through. Barrage, Ice Storm, couple ultimates combining for what should be a secured point here. Ares does end up going down, but GuhRVN has found some good damage onto a couple of the squishy members of InControl Nation. Not before Tóuga has found himself a nice double kill. Once the Cassie falls, ZerO takes up the mantle of moving back in. Assert dominance. They're actually buying more time here, but you look at those respawn timers in the top left. This Ashe pretty much on an island all off on her own, and shoulder bash out to safety. Finally, this one comes to an end. Carnage Gaming are on tap.
And the lack of mobility for InControl rears its head again there in the end. Maybe someone with the respawns coming in could have followed up and gotten a retouch, kept that overtime going, given them a chance, but only Ashe having that capability means things just fall apart as soon as the assert dominance ends and she goes down. Now potentially getting staggered with not much chance to help if the flanks do decide to get aggressive enough up top, and Carnage has already taken control of all these areas, all the places they need to be. They're by the carry corner, they're on Torch, they have all this space. Not going to last long enough because of how far back the card is, but it's a great start that could give them something to bounce off of as they push forward.
And I think this is a massive turnaround. I mean, you look at Carnage Gaming, and it seemed pretty desperate there for Carnage. I mean, you lose GuhRVN immediately overall, but maybe at the same time, it's kind of a quiet, great play from Carnage to fully disengage, and then you kind of re-engage at the last possible second when InControl already at 99%. But they did it in the right fashion, and Carnage were able to push that one through and find themselves point number 1. Now here the big question is, how are you going to get Amadeus uncomfortable? A barrage is a great way to start down to 43 HP. Amadeus will receive some healing, but for the moment that forces that Strix out of the back line, and Carnage Gaming can find themselves maybe an opening.
Barrage is a great counter to Viktor. We're going to see happen quite a bit, especially with the pressure happening right now. Seismic Crash and Dome Shield traded on the point back and forth, and Tóuga's the first one to die.
Yeah, but Ares gets stunned inside of the Dome Shield. Has to wait for that to drop for IceMonkey to finish off the kill. It is a 2-for-1, but respawn's going to be a lot closer here for InControl. Can you burn down IceMonkey fast enough? The answer is yes. LZerO will fall as well, and Carnage Gaming, after going down 99% in mid-fight number 1, turn this game around and roll it in for the 2-0.
And you can see, I think, the strengths of Carnage's composition coming out a little bit more as it goes on. Having those flankers that can have that burst sustain on their own, keep themselves out of a fight, means that even with the double backline on an area of the map that I feel like they should be dominating, they can just pick their fights, not present them with damage, potentially bait in Amadeus and Tóuga to try to go for more. Carnage topping the damage charts because of that. Not too many threats being presented to Amadeus and Tóuga. They're hitting the shots when they're there. When the fight is there, they are connecting, but Carnage has so many more chances to select when they engage and who they present any threat to at all. You can even, I want to also, the Evie build is being pointed out, and I say the Evie build because that is literally the Evie build. There is no other that is really getting run very often right now. It's good to have ammo, healing, sustain, mobility, everything you could possibly need to have a pop-off potential on Evie.
And Aspexy has gotten 6 kills and only died once, so apparently the build works. And this certainly is no exception, and Ice Storm will net the 7th kill of the game for Carnage Gaming's flank. Carnage Gaming are going to have a much better time here on this mid-fight. Not going to have to wait till InControl get themselves to 99%, but there is a good disengage from the blue side. Aspexy not able to finish off the kill, but InControl Nation do back themselves off and kind of save the life of a few of their team members.
Ooh, and rough timing on the Earthen Guard coming in from IceMonkey in main is going to make it a lot tougher to retouch because the Earthen Guard's not going to come up till way later, but aggression in the backline, assert dominance, stuns Ares.
LZerO will go up, down. Ares has to drop down from the high ground. Will get plugged away for a little bit of damage, but Crimson is there just to pocket up that Viktor. IceMonkey in the meantime, there's no attention being paid to the Inara. Finally, LZerO finishes off the Viktor, and maybe that's a trade Carnage Gaming will be okay with. You have a couple other DPSs on your team that can get it done as well. LZerO has to shoulder bash his way through. Back to the corner he goes, and Aspexy, one of the 2 remaining DPSs for Carnage Gaming, will drop down that off tank. Overtime is on as IceMonkey moves his way back in from base. This is a big area for Amadeus, who needs to find some damage. Tóuga ends up falling. Seismic Crash drops down, but IceMonkey falls nonetheless. This is looking like point number 3 through, and Carnage Gaming, 7 minutes in, they're on game point.
And the Inflame makes that duel almost unwinnable. 3 people diving in onto whoever they want with all that bonus damage and all that speed means that those duels are going to always go in favor of Carnage, assuming they play properly. They're already taking all this space up top. Aspexy wormhole right in front of Amadeus means he's not going to be able to keep supporting his team as they keep the pressure up, but he can't be too unhappy about that. The card has a long way to go, and still this pressure up top is going to keep this space held.
And talk about this turnaround from GuhRVN. I mean, he jumps in, point fight number 1, immediately dies, first death in this game. And now Buck is on a 20 kill streak rolling through here for Carnage Gaming. We figured the Buck would need to play a big role, and I think GuhRVN's done that and then some.
Buck is basically just a flying off tank at this point. You can see why Brazil is banning him and picking him so early with the amount of pressure he has. If you win the game fast enough and you get to maintain your build with deep breath and get to really abuse the bulk up, you're almost unkillable a lot of the time. You have to do it before Cauterize comes online, but if you can get away with it, you can just wreak absolute havoc in the backline, making people turn at you just like Raum, except you have a lot more burst damage and you have a chance to get out if you live long enough.
And at 8.5 minutes into this game, there will be some Cauterize online, but it hasn't gone on long enough to fully mitigate a lot of what GuhRVN is looking to do. Flashbang, unfortunate, just catches the archway there. So by the wayside, Amadeus realizing that the gates have been stormed. GuhRVN will jump up, connect with the net, but finally the Buck is shut down as IceMonkey turns around and follows up on some good damage. That's an assert dominance over into the dome shield. Oh, the double knockoff. And that'll result in a couple of deaths there for Carnage Gaming. The aggression was there, and it looked like for a moment it could work, Perez. But InControl Nation, they have the defense to stall it out.
That was an amazing kinetic burst combo with the assert dominance leading into it, getting those 2 kills. It is unfortunate that they had to spend that to hold it after that flash hit the wall and the assert dominance went inside the shield. A lot of ultimates are still available for Carnage. If they wait for this 5% from the Furia, they have a chance to come in with Barrage, which should do well against the Strix. Buck Wild, which can go on anybody that GuhRVN finds his way onto, especially with this split that they have right now. They still have a shot at this, but they have to go quick before the other ults come online. Scout and Eludes Rift being, I think, strong counters to a chaos kind of style. Only 5 seconds left, and it looks like now might be the time.
LZerO under some duress by Aspexy on the high ground. Tóuga looking for some shots as well. Kind of a 5-man rotation down underneath. GuhRVN off the map one more time. LZerO does fall as well, so we are evened up here. An Inflame from Crimson could be used. Amadeus somehow stays alive up in the carry corner. Aspexy drops down as well. This is looking like a good defense for InControl Nation as Carnage Gaming have to move themselves away. Scooter's doing a good job, though, of keeping this overtime on. Amadeus does end up finally falling as Scooter will make his way back behind the shielding. Barrage drops down as Tóuga is stunned up. LZerO moves down to the low ground. A blast shot back will connect. That's all she wrote for this one. That overtime meter was going to evaporate the moment anyone from Carnage stepped off. We're headed to another mid-fight.
Carnage made the right play, I think, by all kiting back inside that room. It was the only place that was going to be safe from the aggression that InControl was starting to do. But that is the downside of solo tank. If Scooter gets pressured, if your respawns are just a little bit out of sync, you're not going to be able to keep that objective contested. The people you have to throw onto it are going to be too important to be in other positions for the fight. So they just hold on to some of their resources, Inflame in the Ice Storm, and the Buckwild. Take it into this next fight with them after forcing out several ultimates from InControl who... they had their life on the line. They had to use it, so not bad that they spent it, but only relying on a scout, which is more of a counter initiator, stop them from doing their play. They're going to have to find a way to counter some very strong ultimates, I would say, without having much of their own. Usually defensive play would cause it, but if you give them time to set up, Carnage will get away with murder.
This is a big one for InControl Nation. They have fast cap on their side. A Buckwild with an Inflame. That'll start it off just fine for Carnage Gaming. 2 kills and maybe 3 here. Aspexy, Ares, GuhRVN, all the damage dealers for Carnage getting it done. It's 3 for the Buck down the stretch, and Carnage Gaming, they're off to the races with a chance to win.
Who'd have thought that adding one more shot to Buck's shotgun would make him one of the best tanks in the game, huh?
Yeah, it seems good, right?
I've been doing the math in my head, and I'm starting to think it might not check out, but right now, Carnage Gaming, everything's checking out for them, and they want to check out of this map with this stronghold they have right now. This split from InControl might not be what they need to do. I think they need to isolate one side of the map, and having Cassie all the way on the right, with Aspexy not even having to pay attention to it, could be their downfall. They don't block LZerO, but no one even makes it to the objective. They just hold it. Scooter in front of everybody, just dome shields, and no one even has a chance.
We're building up. Here's going to be the big team fight. There's an assert dominance surely going to come down to the point, and it never does. In Carnage Gaming, they hang on for the 4-1 victory here in Game 1 on Serpent Beach. Looked consistent. The only point that InControl were able to get was on that defensive end, and I imagine the stats will pretty much tell the story that we saw, where GuhRVN really started to come online after that first death. Aspexy at 12-5 did a great job as well. But you hung a lot of this game kind of before we got into it on Scooter, and I think Scooter on that Buck did a wonderful job kind of pushing Carnage Gaming forward as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Scooter living through a lot, and this is also Barik, a character that I think has kind of been struggling in this solo tank meta with the loss of his sustain. Usually you want your solo tanks to not eat up a lot of resources, and a lot of resource-light characters are kind of being successful, which is also why GuhRVN, I think, was so strong. You can see here in some of these replays, but Barik needs a little bit more love nowadays after the changes to some of his cards. Scooter was able to get away with a lot while really letting the Buck, letting the Viktor, letting the Evie take the healing they needed when they really needed it in those more desperate situations, and not going down in the process for it.
And we saw kind of 2 different mindsets and picks and bans in that game. InControl Nation opting for kind of the traditional 2 tanks, healer, 2 damage dealers. Carnage Gaming kind of pivoting off a little bit, triple DPS for them. Frozen Guard is where we will head for map number 2. Does this open your mind to any sort of interesting takes on picks and bans? Obviously, long-range damage dealers are very important here. Do you think snipers, long-range, Viktor may come at a premium?
I think so. I think every team's going to have at least one, but flankers are also very strong on this map. You can see the control from the side of the objective. Depending on how you want to play, you can really run it either way. Either you play the long-range style against the wall and just protect your backline and deny objective capture, or you play on that wide-open high ground, but you play super close to the objective, so anyone who has to fight you, fights you on your terms, or they're super isolated because they have to go all the way around from house. So even though it looks kind of like a flat Kansas kind of map where there's really nothing you can do on the mid-fight, there's a lot of things you can, depending on how comfortable you are playing those different ways. Looking at these bans so far, Jenos, Maeve, Viktor ban from Carnage, I find that interesting because I think there's other characters who can do that same role, but only Viktor has that versatility of just AoE damage around the corner, really quick at relocating. They just don't want to have to deal with that with an Ashe as their first pick.
Well, Carnage are going to lock in the Ashe, as you point out, and I find that interesting, I'll admit, Kresnik, because for the longest time, I mean, at least, maybe not, that's an overstatement, but you look through kind of the qualifying weeks, and it was sort of, all right, let's get to the tanks later on in these drafts, and today, by both separate teams, we're seeing Ashe prioritized first overall.
I think that makes sense on a map like this, too, because it's so wide. If you do want to play an engaged style, you have to get the Ashe. There's no other tank that's going to get away with that. Maybe Raum, but we can see Raum at the bottom. We know he's not going to be played. Ashe can cross that gap very quickly, make room for the rest of the team to follow up if you want to engage on that backline style. But InControl have already shown they might not want to be doing that with that Buck early pick. They're still flexible. They could end up with triple DPS like Carnage had last game. But at the very least, Carnage have a solid, I think, start. Even though it is almost identical to what InControl did last game, they're probably hoping the rest of their draft... The rest of the draft, I'm sure, is going to be a little more flank heavy, I think, from what I've seen from their team.
Well, we're kind of reversing the script here with InControl just now pivoting away from Carnage's draft in game number 1 as InControl Nation lock in the Strix here. But Furia, Buck, Barik, that was kind of the core, the nucleus of Carnage Gaming's draft in game number 1. And on the same coin, Ashe, Inara, Ying, and now Androxus changed it up, was a big core of what InControl Nation had going in game number 1. Expectations for Androxus on this map, I think he's strong enough that he can really work anywhere. But Androxus, and maybe hold that thought, because Tiberious is maybe the one we need to really talk about.
Yeah, Tiberious, I see him as a backline with inconsistent poke, but he's very strong in these 1v1s, potentially great into the Buck, depending on how well he can burn out his cooldowns and how much he holds on to combat trance. If he can hold on to that fast-firing buff ability that he has, he can duel almost anybody. It comes down to skill on the Buck's part, and one missed headshot could just mean it's over.
Oh, it's Ashe, Inara, Ying, Androxus, and Tiberious for Carnage Gaming here, looking to go back-to-back on Frozen Guard. InControl, they're going to stick with the similar core of their damage while adding a Buck for themselves this time. Game number 2 between Carnage Gaming and InControl Nation. Remember, standings-wise, these teams neck and neck, both 3-1 with Parallax Gaming also at 3-1. So a map like Frozen Guard, very important, I think, for InControl to get some momentum going here in this set to avoid Carnage Gaming from going back to back. And Kresnik, you look at the Carnage Gaming draft. We've obviously talked about Tiberious, obviously talked about Androxus. What kind of play style do you expect from what Carnage have drafted out here?
I think they're going to play a little bit pokey and kind of bait them in, at least maybe just the Buck, but it's going to be tough with double backlines on the other side. They have the potential to do a hard dive with GuhRVN, but that feels kind of scary this early in the game. One Furia heal on their target, if they don't die immediately, could turn things around completely, but they have the burst from the Tigron's Fury. They have the Androxus able to follow up from a safe distance. It's going to take a lot of skill, but they could play this very aggressive and very divey, and GuhRVN going in very quickly on the side, Tiberious to follow up. That looks like the play.
There could be a dive on the right-hand side of the map, and wouldn't you guess it, LZerO dove on first off. Strix back to the wayside, 5 seconds on his respawn timer. 4 members of InControl Nation trying to get out with their lives, really, at this point. Carnage Gaming, they're just going to leave Crimson back on the point. Finally, Tóuga falls. One last shot onto Amadeus, and Scooter will find the double. And what a dream start here for Carnage Gaming. A triple kill, you got to be kidding me, on an Inara. Carnage Gaming, they're rocking and rolling right off the bat.
The CC from the Heavy Blade made that so easy for Ares on the flank. Straight up, everyone was 50% slowed, and him and Scooter just walked in. And if you're getting outmoved by out-mobilized by an Inara, that's a pretty strong CC, I would say, with Scooter just walking over the TMD aggression.
Great.
This is what I think you have to do with double tank against this triple DPS comp when they have these two backlines. When you know they're going to be playing back in, they're going to be playing to protect him, but you have the better health. The only person who has trading with you on one of the sides, at least, is going to be that Buck, and he's kind of a slave to his cooldowns in a lot of these situations.
Ooh, Ares looking for that one final dash to get around the corner, so I think that's a moment of breathing now for InControl Nation, because the payload had, I mean, it's not very far off of the starting point, but it started to make its way to that first choke point. So what can you gain off this ground is the big question here for InControl, and nothing, really. It was one jump in from Buck. Amadeus falls to GuhRVN. And the payload's going to keep going, and look at how far back GuhRVN is here in the back line. I'm not sure that's where he hoped to be. The reinforcements weren't quite there. Carnage Gaming, though, Krez, they're continuing to roll forward nonetheless.
It was a smart move by Carnage there, and not the dive into the back line, but pressuring through the mines. You just go whatever lane doesn't have the tank. That's how you abuse that style of play, especially when they're so stacked up. Only one person watching mines, and they can't deal with that amount of damage immediately pushing into them. Right now, they try to find... Both lanes don't have a tank now, too, because of the flank control kind of not being there. They're only down the middle, and the Inflame's getting forced out.
Illusory Rift, Inflame, Buck Wild, all used here, but it's Carnage Gaming who have struck first. Aspexy takes to the skies, finds a kill, and might get himself out alive. Crimson finishes off Tóuga. 3 members of InControl Nation left up high on the high ground, trying to defend Aspexy. The double tap with the heavy blade and some shots to finish off ZerO. No more Strix now, as you're going to have to send the Barik on down, but Aspexy not dissuaded. Deleted it as IceMonkey and the Dome Shield, and Carnage Gaming brute force through 2-0. Up they go.
That was some clinical use of Heavy Blade there. I haven't really seen this talent used to this level before, and I was a doubter. I'm going to tell you, Dave. No, I was a doubter. I was like, double chaining CC was so good, having the ability to pull it out, put it out, and pull it back for more damage over time. I thought it was just going to be better for Tiberious, but we just saw the slow get used to keep Strix out of the spawn, and then the burst damage kills the Barik before he can re-heal. Giving that tool to Tiberious on top of the rest of his kit, it's 1200 burst damage, and you get slowed for 50% for almost 4 seconds. It's an insane tool for this character to have, especially when you're playing him as a dive champion. You send the Ashe in, you send the Tiberious in, he slows you, bursts you, and now he also has combat trance still. He hasn't even used, arguably, his best ability.
It's been such a treat watching these players get better with Tiberious, seeing where he can kind of slot into some of these team comps, and it certainly helps when your front line is doing what Scooter is doing here. 8 streak on the Inara, first blood, and now second blood in this mid-fight as Tóuga will take a back seat as well. It just feels clinical. IceMonkey in the back line will get rid of Crimson, but suddenly now he's the last one really in range for InControl Nation. InControl get themselves 42%, but Carnage Gaming, they're firmly in control of the map.
With how these teams play with 2 tanks, I think I understand why Brazil is still willing to play with it. If I played against a team that was doing this, I would assume it was the meta. It seems pretty damn good with this aggression they have. Strix already getting forced out in the back. They need to send someone towards the objective first. They're kiting around the side. They kill Ares, but just a Buck getting stunned on the objective and plenty of damage to focus him down.
Oh, and that's a great seismic crash from Scooter. Locks down a couple and gets the kill onto Tóuga. IceMonkey is in range, but remember, he used his Dome Shield at the end of the last payload push there for Carnage. ZerO has gone kind of unidentified here, and that's going to be a big opening now for InControl Nation. Scooter throws up the wall just in time to block the shot, but Ares might have to make his way in to try to recontest this point. That's not to be, as GuhRVN was there for the overtime touch, but shoulder bash on out. ZerO ends up falling, and Scooter is there to take up the mantle on the point, but Inara so low health, and Inflame will put InControl Nation right back into a great spot here, but can IceMonkey stay alive? Aspexy so mobile here. Down goes the Barik. Overtime is touched by Carnage, and they take point number 3.
The Blade Dance just steals it away from them. That ultimate does not apply Cauterize. They could have all gotten healed back up, but just too much pressure from the rest of the team. No tanks there. Again, another failing of the single tank draft. When you lose that one, you have to be more cognizant of the objective. And they were just too excited seeing Tiberious fly around everywhere.
Wow. Yeah, the eyes of InControl were on the flying tiger and not on the point, unfortunately. Carnage Gaming, beneficiaries of that fact. And looked like InControl were in a good spot there. Oh my, so much damage from Aspexy. Talk about the 2-tap. And down goes Tóuga and Amadeus, and that might open up the doors here, Kresnik. Carnage Gaming to be able to make their way through this first point relatively uncontested.
Can I see this Tiberious build? Because I'm copying it as soon as I'm gonna play again. The resets on this Heavy Blade that he must have. Yeah, just the raw cooldown on it, and then some sustain. Yep. I don't know about that health on shield card, but if it's working for him, I might have to take it. Sustaining cooldown is all that he needs to make this happen, and no one's contesting the card.
Payload rolling on through. ZerO down he goes. Amadeus is on the high ground, and Inflame, that's not gonna save your life. Another double shot from the Heavy Blade. Back behind the wall go the frontliner. Suddenly it's only IceMonkey. Up, down goes Aspexy. And that's all she wrote for Frozen Guard. Clinical from Carnage Gaming in a 4-0.
If anybody ever asks me how to play Tiberious again, I'm just going to send them
this VOD,
that
right?
game. Seeing him used as a dive champion, it's not something that we've really seen.
No?
At first, people were playing him as this kind of pokey, use the bounces and then have those duels with the combat trance. But having him use it all as a dive tool, when it's being executed with a tank, it looks almost unstoppable.
Well, one more game goes by, and another stats page will tell the large part of the story. 7-2-6 for GuhRVN, 7-3 and 8 or so for Aspexy. Scooter had a great slash line as well. It's kind of a weird game where Ares and Crimson, I'm not going to say they go by the wayside. Ares did 41k damage, but it was really such a showing from Tiberious, and I think the two frontliners for Carnage Gaming, and I think that's a lot of where your eyes have to go here looking at these replays.
Yeah, the tanks made so much space. Ares was following up on a lot of the damage. He
Agreed.
was playing where he needed to be. But sometimes they pushed the side that he was on. They didn't want to play in the way of the Tiberius, so Ares just ended up kind of on the hold them off duty, like the first tower in tower defense right in the front, maybe not the one that's cleaning everybody up. He's just trying to buy the tiniest bit of time. Yeah, exactly, right there. He's the one that they're shooting at, and Aspexy does this overwhelming amount of damage, and they're just shooting into a reversal the whole time. Ares did exactly what he had to do.
I agree, and I think that's why it's so important to... I mean, obviously you look at stats and the kill feed and all that, and it tells part of the story, but the whole team nature of Carnage just seems to be working right now. And in such an important game against InControl Nation. That's 2 games. They came, they went. Carnage Gaming on top 2-0. We will have a game 3. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, game number 3. Welcome back. You are watching the PPC, and we've got game 3 between InControl Nation and Carnage Gaming. And in the first 2 games, it's been kind of a lopsided affair here, Kresnik, especially in a game where we've seen both teams kind of opt for both types of meta drafts that we've seen. Traditional 2-tank healer, 2 damage dealers from both teams, and then triple DPS plus buck for both teams. And Carnage Gaming have just looked a little bit more together, I suppose, is the right way of looking at it through the first 2 games.
A big part of it, I think, is that they end up with a draft that just has more synergy in general. You look at the first map, InControl had the same tanks that Carnage had on Frozen Guard, but they didn't have dive characters to go with it. They didn't have that aggression. Everyone else wanted to wait, so they just had this mismatch of tempo. Carnage always had the supplementing DPSs be exactly what their tanks, or lack of tanks on the first map, needed to be able to follow up and make use of the space that they made.
We'll see what these teams opt for here on Stone Keep for game number 3. InControl Nation looking to get some sort of momentum going here. They got a defense in game 1, completely swept there in game number 2. So just get something going here in game 3, maybe get a win and see where the next couple of games will take you. Bomb King banned out. Might be the first time I've seen Tiberious banned, to be honest with you, here in the PPC. Androxus and Vivian to round this out. So you look at some of those perennial bans, game in, game out. Maybe Raum jumps to mind, Jenos jumps to mind as well. Both available here.
But they still want Ashe over it, which is kind of interesting. Ashe is great at pushing the up top area, though. The flak cannon, the AoE around the corners is going to make it a lot harder for those tanks to stand on the railing and keep it locked down. But Carnage do actually want to make a move on the unbanned characters now, with Jenos going their way. I would expect, I think, some DPSs to follow this up. Seems like it might be Carnage's MO later in the draft, of course. Maybe a triple DPS. Having Barik and Jenos used to be a great combo. Nothing's really changed there. I think having that mark on him, letting him output that insane amount of damage he's always done, it's going to help a lot. But double off tank is going to be a hard battle for him to fight into.
And I think with Raum early on here, a lot of that storyline has been, how do we stop what Raum is trying to do? And I think Jenos, obviously, just kind of the automatic Void Grip has been what comes to the forefront. Are you at all concerned with InControl now picking that Raum into the Jenos?
I think so. That they do, if they play the Raum very slow, they can maybe use the Raum just to ult down the Dome Shield. That is a choice that they have, but it's a tough one to have to pull out. They have so many. I think the Void Grip is just going to stop him so easily when he's trying to use that Juggernaut and run around. not going to be able to get as aggressive as maybe he could have been. He'll take focus, but it'll be in front, and no eyes or heads are going to be turned.
Right.
And that's what Raum wants to be doing.
Right, and that's a great point. And I'm excited to see how not only Carnage, but InControl are able to play around that. Full 5 picks in here, sticking with the Buck. Our InControl Nation here, Ash, Raum, Viktor, Buck, Furia. So traditional in the sense of 2 tanks, 2 damage dealers, and a healer for them. Drogoz, Maeve, though, for Carnage Gaming. Gonna be an interesting game to watch here. Carnage Gaming up against InControl Nation. Carnage, after a 4-1 strike immediately with a 4-0 on Frozen Garden. Now, we head to Stone Keep for game number 3 to see if Carnage Gaming is able to take this one 3-0, or if InControl Nation are going to bounce themselves back here in game number 3 and force us on to a game 4 and maybe a game 5 after that. But I briefly brought it up there at the end of picks and bans, Kresnik. Aspexy, Ares, a Drogoz, and a Maeve, respectively. That's a damage combination we haven't seen in a little while.
Yeah, and for me, that screams that they're going to be playing outside. You just have the Drogoz using those trees as cover to hide from Tóuga. Normally, you would think picking Drogoz into Viktor is kind of a death sentence, but this is a map where you can get away with it. There's plenty of cover, I think, on the high ground. You can just fire spit people around corners. He has options, ways he can play, but it's a skill matchup. It really comes down to how good is the Drogoz at avoiding this. They're going to play outside. They're going to lock them in all these choke points and InControl. Yeah. Now, they have to be able to break through without taking a ton of damage on the way.
And you can see where InControl are pivoting themselves. Carnage as well. Ares has found himself the backline flank. This is the time in the game where you want Amadeus on this Buck to be doing the most amount of impact in these fights, and the impact he's found is a death in the column already. Scooter has found a kill onto Tóuga. Aspexy already pouring out damage into this Raum. That's 3 members of InControl Nation left alive, 3 members forced back around to this banana side, and look at how InControl are being corralled.
Yeah, and Carnage just keep drafting mobility. They can choose all their fights. Look at this. InControl, they all walk away as a unit. Carnage try to push. They say, oh no, I don't want to do that. And they all get out for free. That's just how their draft is going to work. InControl finally make a move, but they have to commit to it. IceMonkey slows down, and he's going to eat so much damage.
Well, Ares is at least a casualty if you're InControl. It's a small win for yourselves there. You have, well, taken back control of this mid-fight. High ground hasn't necessarily been your friend if you're InControl up to this point, but Ares now playing a little bit more frontline focus, just going to pour out some damage into LZerO, but I'm not sure you're going to be super successful in trying to outdamage a Raum. LZerO just turns around, peppers down GuhRVN, but the rest of InControl have fallen in the meantime. Carnage just kind of ignore the Raum, kill everyone else on InControl, and that's all she wrote. Carnage Gaming, they swing first.
And sometimes when an off-tank can't be aggressive, you can see how little they can do to really stop you. Raum is there. Raum is this huge threat being banned in every game, and yet they just ignore him. They just walk past him and don't care that he's sitting there in the way. Pressure straight through that choke he's holding. Yes, he gets one traded kill, but it's not enough to slow down the pressure from Ares running through the rest of the team.
And especially right when it's Ares who dies first on that Maeve, he can just get right back in. That's an ultimate, drops down on a Crimson, not able to finish off the kill though, as the Maeve is there to toss some daggers back into the Raum. So a great start here on this payload push for Carnage Gaming. Aspexy not able to stay alive, so a small bit of advantage pulled back here for InControl. And this is really, I think, Kresnik, where you need this Viktor to start swinging. Back on this defensive end, you're going to stick him up on the high ground, and maybe around the low ground here. Ares could finish off the kill. That set of daggers would have done it. But Viktor able to stay alive, so that's where you want your Viktor to have the big impact.
Yeah, for sure. Being able to actually stop people from fighting you. But the flank from this side, Drogoz and Ruckus coming in, find multiple.
Yeah, this is just kind of starting to evaporate away from InControl. It looked like great trades, but a couple of kills from Aspexy. 3 down the stretch, a confirmed double. And the payload, instead of being pushed backwards, is going to roll right back in towards InControl side of the base. And that is an assert dominance down onto the low ground to maybe start off this defense. Aspexy has that Dragon Punch. Should he choose to use it on LZerO's large health pool here, because that Raum has chipped away at Ares, and now Aspexy, who has to dive down back around the side. But you've got kind of some of your frontline presence off to the right-hand side here. LZerO finds himself an opening, juggernauts his way through GuhRVN out of the church side. Is IceMonkey here, and this could be the defense that InControl Nation need to try to keep themselves alive. Ares with some good daggers into the side of IceMonkey. Tóuga peppering down the Maeve. And with 15 seconds left, things looking like it might be able to be a successful defense here for InControl Nation. And this is where I want to see this Viktor move him back to this high ground, drop down some good ultimates, or drop down some good damage with this barrage. 1 second left. Overtime will start here. Aspexy finds the first kill onto IceMonkey, not before being traded out. iMaxSouza doing the best he can to spray out enough healing to keep the rest of his team alive. This is a difficult one for Carnage Gaming to roll their way into, and it looks like for the moment, InControl Nation will be able to take a breath and get themselves a point. And this game is indeed tied up here, and I think so much of that just kind of born from the long drawn-out fight, and kind of different from what we saw on the mid-fight, was where the Raum was able to move himself forward, LZerO was able to draw enough attention onto himself, and that really opened the door for Amadeus. This Buck had a big turnaround, a 7 streak, and you look at that, 4, 3, and 6, so 7 of his 10 affected kills came down the stretch there on that defensive side. So I think a big win for InControl Nation there. And I think IceMonkey, I think I want to see a little bit more out of this Ashe on this mid-fight. It's hard to say for LZerO, though, I think, because the Raum moved himself forward. The ultimate didn't quite find the value he was looking for. It was kind of a solo ult onto the Carnage Gaming healer, onto Crimson. And remember, the rest of Carnage Gaming just kind of ignored LZerO, so maybe something changes here, although not much. And Inflame starts off for InControl Nation, a Void Grip onto LZerO in the backline, and the rest of Carnage Gaming are just going to roll themselves through. Finally, Aspexy taken down. Scooter finds an important shot onto the Raum, but a bit of a roundabout shot. That's going to be a solo Hexafire into Tóuga. He didn't stand a chance there. Carnage Gaming still in control of this large high ground side of the map. It's going to be tough. 3 members of InControl Nation trying to fight their way right back in. Raum is back from base. Crimson does have a through time and space to maybe even out the odds here, as InControl Nation have a large health pool advantage maybe up here on that high ground. 75% for Carnage Gaming. Through time and space that will catch onto LZerO, notable. And a Void Grip as well to keep this Raum out. GuhRVN, Ares both combining for a couple of kills here. Raum on the Juggernaut through. Oh, and they do find a couple of kills. So InControl Nation keep themselves alive in this fight and assert dominance from IceMonkey will not connect. Crimson finishes off the kill, and Carnage Gaming are able to take their second point in this game. And this was, I think, a big turnaround, though. I'm curious. Didn't see the ultimate out of the Raum this time around. The Juggernaut was trying to find some value, but a similar look as the ultimate swings wide there, where Raum goes to the high ground, LZerO trying to turn some heads there, goes to the back line really to start off that mid-fight, and Carnage Gaming just say, hey, Crimson, Void Grip the Raum. The rest of the team will continue to fight on the high ground, and you know, Ares has been hitting his daggers more consistently. Tóuga's been having a tough time really getting involved in this game. I think right now, this is where InControl Nation kind of need to push that advantage. They've gotten themselves 3 or 4 kills. Let's really get this defense shifted to the Carnage Gaming side of the map. Aspexy does have a Dragon Punch. Haven't seen that make a big tilting impact here. So I'm curious if Aspexy might try to use that at a specific time here. At this point, 1 minute and 23 seconds left. I don't know if you're InControl Nation. You need to start swinging these big ultimates just yet.
Hey, you got some backup here, Dave. I'm with you now, bud. How's it going?
We're good, dude. There's been enough chaos and action that Carnage Gaming have, at least kept things rolling. So there's something to talk about at any given time. But happy to have you here as I now take a breath.
Yeah, no problem, Dave. You rest up, and Carnage will do anything but as they continue their onslaught, man. And Ares has been a big part of that so far here on this Maeve. They've got tons in the back pocket as they're geared up rounding around this next quarter, but InControl still have some decent tools. LZerO, has gotten one, but Aspexy gets a second, and GuhRVN still in great position, waiting on this Hexafire, hasn't used it yet, but still just barely letting this Raum get back.
Ooh, I'm curious if GuhRVN is going to toss out that Hexafire up here onto the high ground. I mean, it will get you point number 3. Carnage Gaming fully loaded on their ultimates, and you might not need to. Scooter is going to drop the Dome Shield to maybe start off a successful push.
And the Hexafire is going to be right there behind it. I don't see where IceMonkey can go. He dashes in and finds a way to turn around. GuhRVN does fall, but Aspexy still right here with him. The Inflame coming out as well as InControl, trying to dump everything they can to keeping this defense alive. They got some members low off to the side, and ZerO can come clean those up with some help from Tóuga. It's a double from him. Now into the overtime. I don't know if Carnage are built enough to keep this overtime going. InControl might have just bought themselves enough time here, Dulce.
Trade's just a little bit more effective, I think, down the stretch there for InControl Nation. I mean, you got the large damage dealers out of the way. Ares goes by the wayside, and then just low health bars kind of across the board there. I think the Hexafire, if that had gotten IceMonkey, maybe you're looking at something a little bit different there. Damage reduction on that shoulder bash keeps the Ashe alive. And that's a big turning point, and despite being 3, 8, and 5, that one of those 3 for IceMonkey, I think, is really successful in keeping that payload from going through. A full list of havens here, though, for Carnage Gaming, and that kind of lends itself to my next point. Not surprising. I mean, you look at what Tóuga wants to do, sit back and pepper you with direct damage, and ZerO, largely. I mean, he wants to not sit back, he wants to move forward, but he's going to be spewing out bullets as well, so Carnage Gaming, a little bit defensive, and I think could pay off here in this mid-fight.
I like the idea with that early Jenos ultimate. Did not quite, though, bear fruit the way that Carnage Gaming were hoping. They've already been pushed back. That's huge from IceMonkey. He finds Ares early on, and now that Maeve, way less of a thorn in their side. If it's dead, 15% for InControl already, but they haven't exactly racked it up or anything like that. Carnage still have plenty of time to try and fight their way back in. They're going to need their Ruckus, though, and GuhRVN already making big plays. He puts Tóuga back down, and now it's Carnage in center control, and they might even lose their Raum. He does make into the dash and gets around the corner just barely in time, but can't say the same for IceMonkey. Carnage now in control, pushed up beyond the midpoint, starting the zone.
I gotta say, it was kind of weird that InControl sent everyone to the backline instead of just ZerO this time. They found an early kill, and then everyone left except for their Buck, and that kind of put InControl at a weird disadvantage. Now InControl have to move their way back in. ZerO's about half health. This barrage needs to find an impact.
Tóuga considering dropping the barrage. It looks like he holds it. The Inflame, though, will be used for InControl, but Aspexy's got an IceMonkey already. They'll answer back by taking care of the Barik. That's nicely done, but they lose LZerO on the back of that, too. This is still favoring Carnage as they get rid of Amadeus as well. They're at 87%, and as soon as they hop back on, they can start racking up more because they've lost Tóuga, they've lost the Furia at this point, too. Carnage are keeping them staggered. They're up to 99. They've got the full cap.
Yeah, Finch, this is just brutal. It feels like InControl have swung first every single time. They've gotten the first kill. They've got the positional advantage. And honestly, I think a lot of this hangs on Ares on this Maeve. The mobility has just been so hard for InControl to lock down because I say InControl swing first, but there's immediately a swing back from Carnage Gaming. Carnage Gaming have not been in these 4v5 disadvantages for long before evening it up to 4 versus 4. And now you look at kind of that ultimate economy. The barrage is going to be back up, but a good through time and space, a Midnight, a Dome Shield, that could really soften this defense, but losing Ares might make Carnage Gaming back themselves away.
You mentioned the barrage, and it did come out from InControl. He fired all the shots, too. And it has forced Carnage a bit back, except for IceMonkey, who falls. Carnage get that pick, but they're still retreating at this point. This is a good defense from InControl, but look how much they built up in terms of pushing it early on. I mean, a minute and a half left to work with. I mean, they've still got tons of time.
Oh, at this point, one stagger, really, one heavy stagger is enough to maybe get this one to go in. A good Void Grip onto ZerO could get the Raum, and they do end up getting him. So now, just as Buck is respawning, Raum is still going to be 10 seconds behind. This could be the push.
A good stagger, you say, something like catching ZerO out maybe on the Raum with a good Void Grip. Maybe that could be starting right here, right now. IceMonkey, though, gets planted back in and is keeping the payload from moving any further, but he takes a ton of poke forward. So Scuderi gets aggressive, moves up and sets up for Ares to find that shot. ZerO's back on the left side, but he's already down to half HP, forced to use the dash to try and reposition. GuhRVN still getting aggressive. GuhRVN still putting in the damage. That's it for ZerO. How about a Hexafire to be added to this affair as things get even worse now for InControl. IceMonkey is back up, but the damage comes raining in. He can barely hold on, and no one is checking this Ruckus in the back line. Amadeus ends up falling too. ZerO's back up, so that is going to keep the fight going a little bit longer. They are barely finding the touches, but this is heavily favoring Carnage. Now Ares back up. He loses his battle on left, but that's a good shot from Crimson.
This is nuts, Finch. A Void Grip on the
is.
Zero will keep them out. Down come pouring the rest of InControl. IceMonkey will shoulder bash his way out. And finally, Carnage Gaming get the win. I have to, surprising to say the least there, where it really seemed like the respawns for InControl were going to kind of slow things down. But again, effective trading from Carnage kept them on top.
It was good trading there from Carnage, and a lot of that, I think, has to come down to that Ruckus player, right? I mean, he got tons of good trades. It starts, though, I mean, right when you said it, with the Void Grip onto the Raum, right? Losing Zero that early really did create that stagger effect, where they were able to start pushing in pretty easily on the back of it.
Yeah, and I loved what I saw out of Carnage Gaming here today. They take themselves to 3-0, really put themselves separate from InControl, I suppose, at this point. Up on top is still that Parallax squad, Kronz, Mitau, Outlander, Dintic. But what I saw from Carnage was good, consistent, together team play. Look at those damage number. 4 members of Carnage Gaming above 6 digits worth of damage. And you do have even Crimson, you do have an Astromark. Right, even Barik, which Kresnik kind of pointed out going into this game. That's kind of a tried and true combo. A Jenos mixed with a Barik. The damage potential is going to be there. Can you capitalize on it? The answer, obviously, this time around is yes. But my eyes really go towards Ares in this one. Had a quiet day in terms of massive kill feeds, things like that. But he had so much. He was a big role player today. It's kind of the way I look at that. And Aspexy as well, I think, did a wonderful job. This is kind of just a team win, I think, today from Carnage Gaming. As team win as you can get. GuhRVN, some big Hexafires, it's true. So I look forward to their next matchup against Parallax to kind of determine really that 1-2 spot, because obviously after a game like this, there's some discrepancy between now what would be the second and third place teams in Carnage and InControl.
No, this is a big win for Carnage, just like you said, and a team win. It raises a couple of questions for InControl, I think, as well. There were some times that they started the fights off looking really good, but they could not hold on to keep the fights going, too. That's something that's got to be cleaned up for that team going forward. But obviously the headline for Carnage here is that this is a big win, man. They're up 3-0. It turns out it was all 3-0s in Brazil this week. They won their game. Parallax take down Clarity, and Fatal Ambition beat Balamansa there as well. So kind of a big swingy day, it looks like. And in terms of the standings, that means Parallax now joined by Carnage up near the top.
Yeah, the massive swing in the sense of the distance between 2 and 3. Going into today, 1, 2, and 3 were all at 3 and 1. There was a 1 map plus minus differential between first and second and third. That technically was the tiebreaker. So now you have a matchup of destiny between Parallax and Carnage to determine that number 1 spot. And I liked what I saw. I mean, we didn't watch the game on stream today. We will see it either on Friday or on Saturday. But Parallax able to kind of exercise some demons against Clarity, a team that had 3-0'd them earlier this year. That's the only loss that Parallax found. But Brazil's starting to heat up here, Finch. I mean, this is a region where nothing is guaranteed. In the other regions, maybe there's one team out ahead, and the rest are kind of grouped up. I couldn't quite tell you who I have as that number 1 slot here just yet.
It's really close. And that's the thing. I think all the regions are kind of close. In Europe, Distance 69 is a step ahead of everyone else, but right behind them, everyone's stacked up there too, Dulcin. I think that what we're really seeing right now is a bit of a new meta here, like a new breath into this Paladin in terms of how people are playing and what compositions they're willing to try. And just about anybody can win right now. It's just the consistency that's going to be the big difference maker on this one, Dulcin. But that will do it for Brazil. We still have North America, I believe, waiting for us to close things up here on the other side of the break. So do not consider leaving. Paladins action going to be coming at you in just a few minutes.